Atmospheric air pressure is the weight of air exerted on the Earth's surface, which is measured in barometer. Barometer has three basic types, which are aneroid barometer, digital barometer, and mercury barometer. Air pressure is measured in millibars, and the average air pressure at sea level is 1013 millibars, which is 1013 millibars. Atmospheric air pressure is popularly measured in other standards like HPS, which is hectopascals, torr, psi, or inches of mercury, as well as others. Air generally flow globally from areas of high pressure to areas of low pressure. This movement creates 7 pressure belts globally and 6 wind types. These wind types can generally be referred to as prevalent winds or planetary winds. These planetary winds move from one pressure belt to another, and these pressure belts are equatorial low pressure belt within latitude 0 to 30 degrees north and south of the equator. Moving up from 30 degrees to 60 degrees north and south of the equator, we have subtropical high pressure belt. Then 60 degrees and beyond on both hemispheres, we have 2 temperate low pressure belts or subpolar low pressure belts. At the extreme parts of the world, within the Arctic and the Antarctica, we have polar high pressure belts. Like we said before, the winds flowing in between them are called planetary winds. Flowing to the equator or equatorial low pressure belts from the subtropical high pressure belts, in between them we have the trade winds, while westerlies flow from subtropical high pressure belts into the temperate low pressure belts or subpolar low pressure belts. Then in both hemispheres, at the extreme end, easterlies flow from the polar high pressure belts into the temperate low pressure belts. What are those factors that influence the development of low and high pressure belts, as well as the winds that move in between them? 1. We have temperatures. As air is heated, it is forced to expand while its density reduces, and thus there is low atmospheric pressure. This is why at the equator we have the equatorial low pressure belt. This can be evident when using a thermometer and a barometer. When the mercury of the thermometer rises, the mercury of the barometer falls. 2. We have altitude or height above sea level and gravitational force. At the base of mountains or at the lower surface, which is regarded as low altitude, pressure increases. Then as we move up, air pressure tends to decrease. This is because of the impurity and heavy gases that are at the lower surface. Also, while the intensity of gravitational pull increases, atmospheric air pressure tends to reduce. 3. We have humidity or the dampness of air. This makes the weight of air to be variable. Conversely, water vapor is lighter than dry air. As it makes air to rise, atmospheric air pressure then decreases. 4. We have rotation of the earth. Like we said in SS1, rotation and revolution of the earth makes the movement of the earth. So rotation is when the earth moves on its own axis once in every 24 hours. This produces a centrifugal force at the equator that decreases as you progress towards the poles. So because of this, at the equator, atmospheric air pressure is generally low. That is why we have the equatorial low pressure belt, while it is high at the polar regions. Thus, we now have polar high pressure belts. 5. We have the apparent movement of the sun. And we also know in SS1 that the apparent movement of the sun is aligned to global latitudes. So number 5 will be combined as apparent movement of the sun and latitude. So at the equator, like we said before, there is low pressure, and this part of the earth is where the apparent movement of the sun is always present twice in the year, while as it's swinging up or swinging down, the rays of the sun is still retained in those areas. So the area is generally heated and air is always forced to expand, leading to conventional rainfall and high humidity that makes pressure to be very low. While moving further to the polar region, atmospheric air pressure tends to increase because this side is always far from the apparent movement of the sun. The sun rays are always oblique in these areas, though it is cold. 6. We have the type of surface we are regarding or looking at on the Earth's surface. And we know that the Earth's surface is divided into two parts. We have land and water. Land is easily heated than the water. So this tend to cause differential atmospheric air pressure to be set up at different places. So this lead to a daily change or swing in high pressure and low pressure, where air now flows from high pressure area to low pressure area as land and sea breezes. Let's now look at the pressure belts themselves. We said it is those factors that give birth to pressure belts, while pressure belts themselves give birth to the flow of winds from high pressure area to low pressure areas. First, globally at the equator from 0 degrees towards 30 degrees north and south of the equator, we have the equatorial low pressure belt, which is an area of ascending winds that converge in mid-air. This convergence make air or winds to be violent and giving birth to low pressure. The area is termed doldrum. Secondly, after that belt, we have subtropical high pressure belt within latitude 30 to 60 degrees north and south of the equator at both hemispheres. The area is calm due to downward movement of winds that tend to diverge at the surface. Due to this divergence, wind tend to be calm and air pressure tend to be high. Because of this, combined with impurities and gravitational force at the surface, we have high pressure belt that makes the wind to be calm. This pressure belt of this calm wind is called horse latitude. Winds that leaves this area into equatorial low pressure belts are called trade winds. Trade winds are winds that blow in constant direction in a given force. In Nigeria, for example, we have two trade winds that come into the country. From the Sahara Desert or Agadez into Nigeria, we have the northeast trade winds that is referred to as Harmattan, which tend to be dry and hazy and visiting Nigeria or prevalent in Nigeria from November till February. From Botswana in Republic of South Africa, we have the southwest trade winds, which passes through the Atlantic Ocean, bringing rainfall as it peaks humidity or moisture from the sea or Atlantic Ocean. From this same subtropical high pressure belt, wind also flow into the third belt that is called temperate low pressure belt, both the one in the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere. But the twist in the tail is that the subtropical high pressure belt in the north lies southward of the temperate low pressure belt in the north. So the winds that flow from it into the temperate low pressure belt upward is called southern westerlies, though it is found in the northern hemisphere. While in the southern hemisphere, the westerlies that flow from subtropical high pressure belt into the temperate low pressure belt is regarded as northern westerlies because it flows downward from the north to the south in the temperate low pressure belt. Lastly, we have the polar high pressure belt at the extreme of the world in the Arctic and Antarctic regions. These areas are areas of descending winds where winds tend to be divergent and calm. Thus, the pressure belt is high pressure, or the area is a high pressure belt. Wind which tends to flow from here into the temperate low pressure belts are called easterlies. The one in the north, the winds that move from it into the northern temperate low pressure belt or northern subpolar low pressure belt is called northern westerlies. While in the south, the wind that moves from there to the one in the south is called southern easterlies. In the polar high pressure belts in the north, winds that flow downward into the temperate low pressure belt are called northern easterlies, while the one in the southern hemisphere, winds that flow from there to the southern hemisphere temperate low pressure belt are called southern easterlies. With this, I think we have come to the end of this term's lesson. Critically look at the content page, watch the video and attend to the quizzes and assignments in this lesson. I wish you the best.